Hey guys, I'm here with Brad Stein, also known as God's Comic. You can check out more of him in the link below. But we're here today hanging out in the WallBuilders library and actually talking about something related to Christmas, Washington crossing the Delaware.
Yes.
Which is probably a painting most people have seen.
Yes. I've seen it many times. As a matter of fact, what was interesting to me was I noticed as he was crossing that he wore a very specific uniform. And let's face it, if you're going to sneak up on somebody and shoot them, wear a wig, apparently is his thing. And why a wig? Because a toupee would have been ridiculous. But they always dressed up, apparently, before they invaded.
So I've never thought about that. But yeah, it would be weird. Why did you have a wig on and crossing? So, okay. Good point. So they're crossing the Delaware. This happens actually on Christmas night. So not generally my thought on Christmas night, let's go do something. But the reason they did this is because Washington realized at the end of the year that the men's enlistment largely was going to be up. And if they didn't have a victory, the war might not be prolonged. Nobody wants to sign up to do this again.
Right.
And so they're going that night to go what became the Battle of Trenton. They're going to go up to the fort. There's more than 1,000 Hessians they're going up against. And Hessians were professional soldiers.
Yes.
At the time, the Americans, we're trying to be soldiers, right? We're kind of learning along the way.
They were actually more concerned about getting shoes at that point, if I'm not mistaken.
That's also accurate. Struggling a little bit, but they get in these ships, they're crossing the Delaware, and there's this massive storm going on. And certainly not for a Texas guy.
Yeah.
I appreciate the heat. I think a blizzard, a storm is not what I want to be crossing water, open ship, ice all over the place.
But they blamed it on God normally. Isn't that what we see nowadays? It's like whenever there's some bad thing, that tornado comes through, it's an act of God, right? But I never hear when there's a nice day out, did they say, it's an act of God. It's only when the bad things happen. And you know who came up with that idea? The insurance companies. So they didn't have to pay off. Well, sorry your house got ripped away by that tornado, but apparently God didn't want you to have a house. But yet, it did in fact play a part in helping Washington.
Yeah. In this situation, it was an act of God, and not just because it was miserable, although kind of because it was miserable.
Yes.
The storm was so miserable that the Hessians who were guarding the fort go, you know what? I don't like being cold. This is all. Who is stupid enough to attack us in the midst of a blizzard? Nobody's that stupid.
The Hessians went inside to get by the fire. That's the type of disciplined troop you're looking for.
So when Washington shows up, they're able to surround the fort. They're able to capture actually very minimal shots fired. It's a very quick battle, a very quick surrender. But it's interesting, this famous painting, very few people would know the providence of God or the courage of the men involved. Actually, the majority of the Americans that died in this encounter actually died because of the winter conditions, because of the blizzard, not because of the actual battle, which is kind of crazy, but then the leadership of Washington to recognize if we don't get a victory, we're not going to be able to continue on with this and ultimately maybe even win this revolution against the British. So it really is a pretty remarkable story.
It really is. And you know, Washington was our first president, and when he crossed the Delaware, he had a lot of experience with that because earlier he had thrown a silver dollar across the Delaware, which means he obviously wasn't running as the economic president. Because if you're going to throw stuff away, you might want to choose a rock or something, not money. But yet, virtue was easier to come by back in those days. You know, I mean, back in the day, they said, why should we vote for you? Well, when I was 12, I cut down a cherry tree, and when my dad asked me about it, I didn't lie. And the people said, that's all I need. I'm voting for you. So you see, things were much easier back then. Nowadays, if there had been Twitter and Facebook, Washington probably wouldn't have made it past probably the first day. But that's what happens. We trusted people because people had virtue, and they lived it day in and day out.
It is a great example of the character, the leadership of George Washington, and also recognizing the providence of God and helping America survive even past that first year and ultimately become the nation that we've become today.
Right. So don't forget, folks, if you ever want to fight for victory, wear a wig.